this. I'm going to put this full screen for you. And Joseph, you must pop on there and let me know if you can see what I can see, which is the statue here in the middle.
Yes, we can.
Oh, brilliant. Okay, great stuff. So we're gonna try something a little bit different today. It's Friday, so I know people have been listening to a lot of talks and taking a lot of notes, but hopefully we're going to try and get people here in the call to get involved with this. I see 25 people here at the moment, which is a nice number. And, you know, we're going to welcome people to come on camera. We're going to welcome people to come on the mic, share their experiences at different points. But also we're going to hopefully be able to get you to write and interact with the presentation that we're going to do here now. So I'm going to move forward quickly through some slides, get my talking part out of the way, which I know people aren't as interested in as actually getting involved. And then we're going to see if we can do a bit of design thinking that will actually help Startup Week Lusaka moving forward into the next year and the team there as well. So Joseph, you're not getting away with this either. We're going to ask you to get involved too. So quickly, just Joseph, thanks for that introduction. Again, I'm David Pollard. I'm here in Ireland at the moment. I'm in Dublin, which is our capital. And I run Sapien Innovation with Colin Keogh, and I think Colin is on here as well with us. If people want to connect in with me, you're more than welcome to do so. My LinkedIn is there. You can take a photo of this, a screenshot. You can scan these later. My Twitter is there, and of course then the website. But we're here to talk about design thinking and what that is. And really, in a nutshell, it's quite simple. There's a lot of talk around it. There's a lot of theories around it. But really, in a nutshell, I think Tim Brown puts it really well. He said it's a human-centered approach to innovation, and it draws from a toolkit that designers have. And it allows us to integrate the needs of people, and I think that's key. It's the human element of this that I think is so important, and the possibilities of technologies. And I would expand on that and say probably strategies as well. It doesn't have to be just technology in this case. And it can be around communities and what we can do to support them and design these communities. And of course, then as well, the requirements for business success. But, you know, some people in here, you may not be interested in setting up your own business, but you may work in businesses. You may be involved in different elements. For example, we heard about education. And can we use my research at the moment? I'm starting a PhD this year, and it'll be on design thinking and specifically in the educational space. How can we create teachers that are also designers, that have this design thinking mindset that can create solutions to their own challenges within education? So it fits within this little three areas here. If we had a little Venn diagram, you'd see it down the bottom in terms of desirability, the viability, and the feasibility. And in the middle of that, that's where design thinking fits according to IDEO, and I think I would agree with that. So we're going to move forward really quickly with this. I'm going to give you an insight into my own personal experience with it. And I work for a company, along with research, and I work for a company called the Rehab Group. We're the largest Section 39 non-profit in Ireland. We work with people who have various disabilities, intellectual, sensory, learning disabilities, physical disabilities. And you'll see here, this is one chap that we were working with. And he is at the moment in a wheelchair. He's only got a very limited use of one hand, but this was his very first time ever playing a video game. Now, you might say, you know, that this is something very normal for certain people, even just playing a game, if it's cards, if it's dice, whatever it might be. But for him, this was super impactful. He was able to use a mobile chair, an electric chair, and using some of the Xbox adaptive controllers, plus this little controller that you can see in his hand, we found that just by using one or two of his fingers, which is all he had mobility to, he was able to then control the game. So again, that experience, and Colin was actually there at the time during this, like seeing him laughing and smiling and enjoying himself and being able to actually play the game fully, along with the support of his care, was something very impactful. So again, it was about talking to him and trying to understand what he needed, what he could do. And I think that is something that is very powerful, and that we can take those things and bring them into business as well. That idea of understanding and empathizing with someone's current situation and not trying to create solutions that suit us or that we think are good, but actually creating solutions that people need. And I think we can focus on that. From that, I suppose, work that I do within this space has allowed me to go to places like Saudi Arabia, around Europe, to be able to support communities. For example, in Saudi Arabia, we were discussing and doing workshops around how to create value for people with disabilities in Saudi society. We also, in Dublin, we're working with local councils and government agencies around how to create more inclusive spaces, more accessible spaces, so that people who had different challenges would be more included within society, and that their voices would then be heard when we're doing these types of design thinking ideation processes, because often it can come in from a very specific lens. And I think that is something that we should be afraid of. We need to have diversity in these spaces. So we're looking forward to hearing everybody's thoughts today. So myself and Colin and some others, we do a lot of different work. We run, for example, up in the top left-hand corner, these little workshops. They're called maker workshops. And I think that could be something that would be really fun to see, you know, what's happening in Zambia, in Zimbabwe, in Botswana, and the surrounding areas. It'd be really nice to see what's going on there. In this case, we're showing kids and their parents what it's like to prototype a prosthetic hand. So for example, within this case, prosthetic hands in Ireland, they actually can't be, we can't get funding for them for children because obviously children are growing and it works forward. But through 3D printing, we're able to create these cheaper models of prosthetic hands that are able to work. And Colin specifically has worked in that space and has been able to do some great work there. And I think that's something that's very exciting, but we want to create awareness there. So there's that element of that as well. We do gaming conventions for people with disabilities who they're able to share in the creation of those events, not just have an event for them, but in the creation of that as well. And design thinking is a big part of that process, listening to them and understanding what they want and what they need. We work with schools, and of course then down here, I've worked with this woman who is absolutely incredible. She has a very limited use of her arms and her legs and is not able to communicate verbally. So we were trying to create a room, a space that she could control entirely using her eyes. And in this case, we were able to do it. It took us about 6 to 8 months of trying to communicate with her, trying to understand her needs, what she wanted with her care, with her parents. And then eventually, using Amazon Alexa and some different devices connected, we were able to create a space that she was able to control only with the use of her eyes. So she was able to turn on her lights, she was able to change Netflix if she wanted to put that on. All of these different elements that some people, especially in Ireland, we take it for granted, she was able to control. But again, it took the empathy, and that's, you'll see, the early stage of one of these design thinking frameworks. Again, another example of how this can be used. This is a group of 150 Singaporean students that I was teaching up in Trinity College in Dublin. And these students, they were using design thinking frameworks to try and create a new way of thinking and new processes within physiotherapy and within the education process there, but also within that area as I suppose a working space. So they're trying to think of, as students, how can they change the way physiotherapy is not only taught, but also how people think about it and how they work moving forward into the future. So that was very exciting. It was their first time experiencing this. It was a little bit slow at the start because people were unsure, it was new, but once they started to go, the thought processes that came out were very impactful, and they could bring that home back to Singapore and share it with them. Of course, we're involved with Startup Weekends, these 54-hour hackathons where we bring people through a lean business model canvas, and I'll show you what that is in a second. A lot of you will be really familiar with that framework that is there. And we go around to different places in Europe, in Spain, in Barcelona, where we help people. And for example, here, this is all around the idea of sustainability and trying to create sustainable communities and sustainable products and marketplaces and things like that. And finally, we've used it personally for Startup Week Dublin. So I'm one of the founders of Startup Week Dublin, along with Jean Murphy. Colin Keogh has been one of our captains from the very start in terms of supporting us there. And you'll see this is our group of captains, including Furkan Karail. We have Talita Holzer, who are our diversity and inclusion captains, and all the group that are there behind it. And this is really important to us. You can see that we're all quite red-haired over in Ireland as well. But it's super important to us to have understood how design thinking can help us as we create an event. And we understand how the team here developing Startup Week Lusaka has had plenty of challenges, plenty of things that have come up. I've been on the phone to them. Even last night, we were on the phone to Stephen at midnight, chatting, trying to see how this would work, and hopefully it'll work for us. And this is something that has been useful to us. And I would like us, as a group, we have now 29 people in here, to actually walk through a piece of design thinking, just little chunks and little teasers of what it might be, and to see if we can support, using some of these frameworks, this Startup Week moving forward. So we'll look at some challenges, and then we'll try and figure out some solutions as well. An example of a framework that you might see and you might be familiar with, especially within the startup scene, is exactly what you're going to see here. This is your lean business model canvas. So I'm going to ask Colin if you can do a quick test run for me. If you're there with us, I'm just going to check and see if you are. I think I see you there. Perfect stuff. Could you do me a favor? Could you just write in the problem section really quickly? And if you can see that there, that would be super. So in the left-hand side, we may have a problem of connectivity, or Startup Week. We can put in Startup Week Lusaka, and then we might put in engagement there as well. If not, you can jump in the chat and let me know if you can't do that. And that would be great. Or you can jump on the mic. Maybe what we might do, oh, there we go, super. So I can see you writing in that, and we have engagement in there. So that's super. Thanks for that, Colin. So what we're going to do, as you can see, Colin is now writing on my screen. And what we're going to do moving forward is we're going to write on the screen as well during the little presentations. I'm going to take a screenshot once we're done, and I'm going to share that with Stephen and Joseph and the crew afterwards, who will be able to then hopefully use your feedback and your ideas and your solutions to be able to create an even better and bigger Startup Week Lusaka moving forward. So you can see there we've got Startup Week Lusaka engagement, and then in Colin, I might just put in there in solution, we might put in, for example, online polling. And as you can see this is very, very straightforward, a lean business model canvas. I can see someone drawing a beautiful red line across my presentation. That's very artistic, which is super. But this is great. So you can see that you have an option there to work through it. And a lot of people will use this. And I would give, for anyone who's thinking about setting up a business, or even has, going through the process and they're at different stages, use this lean business model canvas. Go on and have take a screenshot if you want. Go on and just Google it. They're available for free online. I would advise you to do it, and it works through from the problem all the way to potential solutions that might use, to your unique value proposition. So what is that unique, that kind of message that you want to bring across? How are you going to do it? Why are you doing it? And what makes you kind of special within this space? Then you've got your unique, or your unfair advantage, which of course in a lot of cases is you as a team. So in this case, when we're doing this process, we're trying to figure out how to make Startup Week Lusaka even bigger and better for next year. Our unfair advantage is that we have all of these brains all the way through. I see that we've got plenty of people. We've got Edwin and Esther. We've got Dr. Katongo. We've got Colin, who's there. We even have a crazy ghost appreciation person there in our participants. So we've got plenty of people who will be able to share and give us insights into what's there, and hopefully that is something that we can use moving forward. So thank you for that. So from this case, what I'm going to do really quickly, and I'm hoping that my computer survives. So I'm screen sharing. Perfect, great stuff. I am just going to move on through my slides really quick. And this is where I can guarantee you the technology breaks down and I'm not able to work through it. So just give me 1 second there real quick. I think we may be having some technical difficulties, so just bear with me. I'm going to screen share one more time. I'm going to put in my PowerPoint presentation and share. Perfect, there we go. So we've had our lean business model canvas. So that's a framework that you can use. This is an example of some elements of design thinking within that, especially within startups. That's something that's used there quite a lot, but I use it for pretty much everything. It's a great way to kind of structure thoughts. And I think that's something that really design thinking is. It's just structured problem solving. So one of these that you'll all be quite familiar with, and if it's new to you, I mean, this is something that a lot of people will be aware of, but it's available as well in Stanford kind of model of design thinking that I think will be really useful for you to have a look at. So it goes from empathizing. So again, as we mentioned earlier, that human element, all the way through to defining your problem. So trying to understand who your persona is, who are the people that are involved in that problem, and how we can create potential solutions to it through ideation. From that stage, once we've got all of these ideas, we kind of like, I suppose, converge on that. Like we're able to go and then prototype and test. And I think that's really important as well. So going through that convergent divergent process where you're going out really wide with your thoughts and then focusing bang in on some of the key elements and some of the problems and solutions to the problems that we were really able to fix, that can be really important. And of course, validation. You all know, if you're in the startup space, if you're in any space, ideas are easy. You can come up with ideas, no problem. But it's validating them and seeing them, will they be useful and valuable, is where this idea of innovation comes true, that you're adding value. Because, you know, there's plenty of ideas out there, but of course, ideas are only around potential, and potential that is not actually grounded doesn't have a lot of value. So that's what all this does. It helps you to take ideas and put them on the ground and test those out for you. So for example, empathize, learn as much as possible about the problem and the people, what causes it. So get down to the root of the problem there. So you might find that you have to ask a lot of whys at this stage. You know, why is engagement not there? Well, people are not talking on the chat. Well, why are they not talking on the chat? Well, there's no internet for them to do that. Maybe the internet is down. Maybe they're using different devices, and it's starting to get asked the whys there. Why are they using different devices? Well, and then so on and so forth. So you might find that you have to ask a lot of whys to get down to the root cause of whatever problem it is. From here, then, we want to define, we want to gather all the information that we've got at the start. So through interviews, trying to understand those people, getting in front of people, and then saying, okay, well, how do I bring all this together and create a problem statement? How do I define that as simply as possible? And a problem statement, really in a nutshell, is just one line that tells you exactly what you're going to do, and then that is your anchor for everything moving forward. That every conversation that you have, every workshop that you have that question up at the top of your idea. From here, then, you're going to think of the ideation stage. Everybody loves this part because it's an opportunity to be creative. It's an opportunity to, you know, expand on your thoughts and think what's going on. So you can think of possible solutions, how you might solve them. You know, you can pop into different fields, and we'll see that in a second, where you can steal ideas. And I love the idea of stealing within innovation, because it's basically what a lot of it is. You know, you'll go and look at another industry and you'll say, oh, that's really cool. Maybe I can take that and put it into the education space. So for example, in terms of my research, I've been involved with the startup world, and I've gone, wow, all that design thinking frameworks, all these lean canvases, all of this great stuff, all these communities, maybe we can bring that to education and then start to change how education is perceived. And I think that's why what was talked about earlier really rang true for me. In terms of prototypes, then, this can be a bit of a challenge for people, because people think of prototyping sometimes as, you know, the 3D printer in the corner that's printing out, you know, maybe, for example, the prosthetic hand, or they might think, you know, of a technical website that's being coded and being shown to people. But actually, prototyping can be as simple as getting a piece of paper or using your phone and drawing out what that might look like. So that paper-based prototyping can be really crucial. You know, it doesn't have to be costly in terms of money. It can be very, very simple. It could be as simple as drawing it out on a wall. You know, that all of these things are really, really key to it. That it doesn't have to look, I suppose, sexy as we see it in some of the different elements. It can be very simple. And I think that's something that we need to get back to, is saying, you know, getting back to the bones. What is that minimal viable product looking like? And then how do we test that? So in that case, then the testing, this is the part where, you know, everybody starts to get a bit afraid. We see it in startup weekends where, and I'm sure there's plenty of people who've been involved with that. Stephen and the crew will probably be able to tell you that when people come into a startup weekend, they come in with an idea. They don't have a business set up. So they come in with the idea, and then we provide them with mentors. And from there, then they walk through this type of process. So they've got this business canvas filled out. They're very passionate about that their idea is going to change the world, and maybe it will. But then there's this case of maybe on a Saturday evening where they have to go out and they have to maybe step out onto the street and ask people, validate this this idea that they've got in their mind outside of the bubble that they've been in. And we've all been there, where we've come up with something and then suddenly we have to ask someone else. And this is a part where people have to get comfortable with the idea of pivoting and moving and shifting, because this will change. Your idea will change based on the feedback of people, and it brings it right back to the empathize section. So this is almost like a cyclical process that can be done over and over again. And I think that's crucial. It's being willing to ask the questions, being willing to actively listen. I think a lot of people sometimes at this point, they ask, but they don't listen. And I think that's an important aspect that we need to get comfortable with. And of course, then that's learning, improving, and moving forward. Before we get started, I'm just going to touch on one thing really quickly. This is something that we've experienced quite recently in terms of COVID. I suppose it's been close to all of our hearts around the world as this has come true. We've had an opportunity to speak to people in government all across the world around this, because I guess Ireland in one sense was in the future, I suppose, 4 weeks in the future into a lot of places in terms of how COVID had hit us a little bit earlier than other places. So we were able to give people an insight into what their future was. But one of the things we did was we worked on this program, myself and Colin and Conan Laverty from Dublin. We all decided that we would set up I suppose a non-profit in this case, which looked at creating emergency ventilator solutions. So we wanted to design a ventilator and then be able to provide it for anyone who wanted to take it. We wanted to create that design so that anyone could use it and hopefully be able to 3D print it out on the far side. So that was our kind of goal at the start. From there, that has developed. We ended up having about maybe 3,000 to 4,000 people, volunteers. So we all did it on a voluntary basis from all around the world who were able to support us. We ended up having about 55 nations represented all across the world. And, we were able to then expand. We decided, okay, well, what was the challenges that we faced? We thought personally it was ventilators. So that was our kind of idea there. But then from interviews, from talking to people, talking to frontline staff, we started to see that actually there was more to this than just ventilators. There were face masks that were needed to be printed, and you can see those there. And also there was a group of people within our community who would come in to support, who maybe didn't quite find the niche within the ventilator. Maybe there wasn't maybe exactly what they could do or support within that project, but then expanded that project. And we ended up having the largest motorbike gang in Ireland, who went around the country delivering personal protective equipment every single day. We had donations from the likes of MMA fighter Conor McGregor and from supporting around the world. So there were things there that we never anticipated. But by having conversations, being open to other ideas, we ended up creating solutions that we had never thought about at the early stage. And that was all part of the process. And we learned and moved with that. And it ended up being tens of thousands of items of personal protective equipment being delivered over the course of the months that we had there by these people who were all volunteers. In terms of our design, if you're just curious about the ventilator part as well, we went through the process of this design thinking phase as well. We prototyped, and there's a team open and in Canada who were helping us out here, WIA as well in Dublin, and we went from all types of designs. We had so many iterations. We decided, okay, well, maybe we need a lever that's able to push down this ambu bag that will then push the air into the lungs. And then we decided, okay, well, what if we had a belt that was able to squeeze? And then, okay, well, then we have some problems with the bag itself. The pressure that's needed to push that bag needs to be greater, but in a way that doesn't, deteriorate that bag over a period of time. And you can see, look, this is months of what we went through, of the team, the designers, the developers, the engineers who were putting all this together. And we were fortunate enough then to be able to connect in with some companies like Ford and Amazon, who were able to support us and take designs and then move them forward within this space. That was very exciting for us. For anyone interested from an engineering perspective, there's also the engineering design process that it's similar to design thinking, but it's slightly less complex. So it just keeps it nice and efficient. And it starts with defining your problem, developing your solutions, and then optimizing that solution before going back all the way to the start. So again, it's testing those solutions, and that's exactly what we did. We used GitHub, where people were able to share open source, so it was all open source, and they were able to go on and say, okay, that design works, this design doesn't work, maybe we should tweak this, maybe we should do that. And all of that was part of that, few thousand people sharing open collaborative work, and I think that was really important. So it was like an open source project without borders, and I think that is something that we need to continue working with here in Ireland and across the different countries, is getting into this idea of doing projects without borders. There will be variables that come in, but I think we can demonstrate that these things work. And again, communication within that is key, and making sure that that everybody contributes as part of it, but also is valued at the far end of it. Okay, our last little part before we get stuck in, we mentioned stealing, we mentioned taking ideas from other people, and cross-industry innovation is, we'll just use this to kind of get our brains sparked a little bit before I ask you to jump on and start to type in on my slides. So for this, in this case, we have cross-industry innovation. It's applying ideas from one industry to another to create innovation. And you will notice that some of these might be familiar to you, and you may have seen them, you may have been in some of these restaurants, but for this case, restaurants meets airport. So they're going to use this conveyor belt style that is available both in the airports, but also then apply them to perhaps a restaurant chain. And you can see how this works. So the food comes, it moves around, people pick it off, and they pay for what they pick off. And it adds to an experience that this restaurant uses as part of, I suppose, their unique selling point within the space of restaurants. So you're not going just for the food, you're also going for part of that experience. So you can see how these ideas have been taken one from the other. Moving on from there, you'll also see how this pram or buggy, whatever you want to call it, this meets a landing gear. So you can see that the design of this, in terms of how it folds up for children and parents, is similar to what's used within the aviation industry as well. So again, it's a designer or an engineer who's looking at one industry and saying, oh, I can create a solution to another industry that might be completely different, but that needs a similar solution, and I can take from there. And I suppose my question to you now at this point is, what would happen if you thought about your hospital being run by Disney? So these are things that, people think about when they're being creative, and this is something that actually happened. What would it look like if you had a hospital and Disney were the ones who were running it? So in this case, the designer thought about, what would happen if Walt Disney came in and started to run it? So you can see up at the top, we've got our scan machine, and what was happening was that children were afraid to go into this machine. They were afraid, and because they were afraid, there was a delay, a time cost to the doctor, because there was an element of that human nature of trying to build that child up to go in and get scanned. So that could be, between 5 to 20 minutes, it could be longer, but that all costs money for the hospital. So what they did was they went, okay, well, what would happen if Disney ran the hospital? And what they created, you'll see down the middle, was they created an experience around the scanning. So now they have a submarine, they're going into this adventure, they're going underwater. And what they noticed was that the time costs and the stress as well on the child, and then the time costs that were then changing into money costs on the far side for the hospital started to lower, because there was more of this experience. And we can also see this with virtual reality, where doctors are around injections are putting on headsets onto children. They're getting injected at a time in a story that's appearing in front of them, and I suppose that's kind of more on the far end of the technological scale. But some of these questions are really useful. So maybe you've got a challenge back where you work. After this week, you go back into your place of work. Maybe you're working from home and you go, okay, well, how might I do something differently? And maybe the first question is, how would Walt Disney do it differently, or somebody that you have in mind? So here we go. we've still got our group with us, which is really exciting to see, and we now want to get you involved. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at trying to get involved. Just a reminder that because you'll be given access to writing, we just want to remind people that this is a safe space. We want people to respect each other, so we appreciate, you know, if we keep the language to something that is suitable for of course our live streams and things like that, and of course be mindful of other people's experiences. So this is about being positive and creative, and not about shutting other people down. So ideas are welcome here. We're all in this together. We're going to explore some of the different elements, hopefully learn some new things, and maybe meet some new people in the chat as we go along. So just a quick insight into you. So if you want, you can just quickly look at your screen. This is going to give you an option really quickly for what we want to achieve. So in this case, we are, just give me 1 second. Okay, let me just give me this up for you. And we want to be able to start to write on our screen. So in this case, you will see at the top of our screen that you are viewing my screen. And to the right-hand side of that, you're going to see a View Options button. And you can click on that View Options button, and it'll pop open Annotate. So I would ask everybody to be able to do that if possible. And when you do, you're going to get this new option that appears down at the bottom. And this at the bottom gives you insight into text that allows you to be able to draw, allows you to be able to put in different elements onto the screen that we see in front of us. And I am going to share with you a test page to see how we get on with this, just to see how it works. So you can screenshot this, take a photo on your phone. I'll just give you a moment to do that. And then we're going to get you to start to get involved in this workshop. So perfect. And Colin, you might just keep an eye in the chat for me if that's okay. At the moment, I think it's best for me to stay here and keep my eyes on what's happening. So you can let me know, you can jump on the mic if needed. Perfect. So first and foremost, what we're going to ask you to do, just as a kind of a test run, are what are some of the challenges, and this is for the organizing team as well as those who are participating and attending, what are some of the challenges of organizing or attending an online conference? So we just want you to give us a bit of an insight into this for if possible. And you can start to use the text box. So it's the third from the right. And we're going to ask you to type in some of the challenges that you might face, even participating or working in an online environment. So in this case, if you want, maybe Colin, okay, I see that promoting the event is one that's coming up, which is great. And I'm going to put in one there as well, engaging with participants. Maybe I should write asking participants to type on screen. That can be one of the challenges that I'm facing today. So that's one example for what you might see. Promoting the event beforehand is one that someone's putting up there. So absolutely, that promotion can be a challenge. So from a participant mode, I'm curious to see what is there. So I don't know if Joseph, maybe you could give Colin an option for Mike, just in case he wants to hop on and just let me know what's happening in the chat. That'll be super. And Colin, you might just give me any updates that are happening there, if that's okay. Excellent, great stuff. Thanks a mil for that, Joseph. And what we're going to do is we're going to take a couple of minutes and we're just going to try and get 10 items of some of the challenges that are here. So if people want, I can of course move back to the slide prior and we can have a chat about this. But in this case, we might have some different ideas that come in. So Colin, just checking in to see if you have.
We have one in the comment section. Some people are having issues with hardware and connectivity, but there are some.
So for anybody having trouble maybe accessing the annotate function, what I would ask, if possible, is that you would type it in the chat. So you can type your answers in the chat, and the team here will add them to the screen for you. So if you have some challenges from a participant mode, even what you're saying right now, let's add that in, because I think that's something that can be really useful for us moving forward to be able to identify. So clearly, you know, at the moment, there are some people in the chat who say, oh, actually, I can't do this. So let's try and figure out why that is. And I think that could be useful. Let me have a look there. So preparing for an online meeting with strangers. Absolutely. Yeah, there's a human element of that. I don't know about the rest of the speakers and people who've been involved, but it is a bit nerve-wracking to come in and to discuss and have a chat with people. So we can see, okay, great stuff. So we've got people now getting involved. So again, for anybody looking for it, you're going up to the green button that says that you're seeing my screen. And on the right-hand side of that, you're seeing more options, so viewing options, and you're going to choose annotate. So that can be something that you can do. So I'm just going to write down here, choose annotate. Perfect, great stuff. So in this case, what we have, we've got a couple of different elements to it. And we can see then as well, it is a new thing to most people in the community and the buy-in was hard. Okay, so that's really interesting. So again, I think what we're talking about there are some of the stakeholder issues that might come up. So maybe it's a case of communicating with stakeholders. So trying to get not only funding, but also the supports that are there and the kind of the PR and supports, maybe it's mentors that would come on. And all of this can be part, ensuring participants don't get bored. That's actually a really interesting point. And we've seen it throughout the course of this week, and we've seen it ourselves, you know, at different points, you know, maybe there's a break in between speakers, there's an option there. So we've used Mentimeter, the team have done a great job there trying to get insights into where we are. We had a really nice poll that went out and it gave us an insight into who was actually coming in from where, and it said there was people from India, it said there was people from Switzerland, we had people from Austria, Ireland, all across the world, of course. Then we had Zambia coming out on top along with Zimbabwe, so really, really interesting. And this is one that's very curious. It's electricity outages and load management. So that's something that's coming in that someone has an issue with as well. And you know, they're actually now starting to look at infrastructures and the challenges that are there. So again, if we go back and we think about asking the whys, we might go now, well, why, and if someone wants to even go into that, is, you know, why do we get electricity outages? Is it because we're transferring electricity to other neighbors or whatever it is? You know, what is it around that? Lack of financial support. Okay, so you can start to see now that we're getting plenty of different ideas around some of the challenges, and this is just around attending and participating. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a quick screenshot here, and we're going to move on, because I think that's something that's really useful for us to work with. So I'm going to take a quick screenshot there, getting time off to attend the online event. Very good challenge to try and overcome. Maybe it's a case of recording yourself on a video on Zoom and playing that video as a background, so that video is on loop, so your boss thinks that you're actually on their call when you're on another call. So let me have a look. Is there anything else there that comes up? Again, hardware issues are a problem here as well. So again, trying to find accessible platforms and that people can work with. So thanks for that. What we're going to do is I'm going to clear all. So that's been really useful. I'm just going to do that now. I'm going to clear my own, and then we're going to move on to our next slide. So just give me one moment. And in this case, let me have a look at our time. We've only got about 20 minutes. So I'm going to skip beyond our notes just for a moment, and we're going to come to what is our problem solution canvas. And this is one of the frameworks that we can use within design thinking. In this case, we're going to walk through some of these elements, and we're going to think about it from the case of how we can improve the experience for participants during Startup Week Lusaka. So that's going to be our kind of our anchor moving forward. How can we enhance the experience for our Startup Week participants? So you'll see that this is our empathize stage. So we want you to help us at this point to give us an insight into who our participants are. So you're all here. We've got over 20-something people who are involved with it, and we want to understand what you think and feel and see and say and do as a participant. So in this case, this is our empathy map. And this allows us to create our persona for the start of our design thinking process. In this case, what we're going to do is we're going to ask you to annotate one more time. So again, for anyone who's wondering where that is, again, it's up at the top, beside where it says you're seeing David Pollard's screen, and you'll get an option, a little drop down that says view options, and you're going to choose annotate. And from here, if you can't access that, please pop in the chat your thoughts about this, and Colin will be able to pull those out and add them in so that we can use this with the team as well. So in this case, what we want to try and do is understand, you know, what is a participant here, what are their pains, what are their gains? And one of the things that we saw in that early stage was that the pain that you might find is around hardware not suitable for video platform. So that's something that can be useful to you to have a look at. Another pain that we might experience was these electrical outputs or outages. So outages cause challenges to connectivity. Lack of stable internet, absolutely fantastic insight there. So thank you to whoever put that in. And as well, what we might do is in the chat, if there's something that you want to elaborate on, please add it to the chat and we can get you to jump on the mic and share with us your experience as an attendee. So if there's someone there who'd be curious or who'd like to share their experience and give us a bit of an insight, we'd love to hear from you as well. What they hear, okay, so that's interesting. So they're saying Zambia needs more startups. So in this case, you know, maybe that's coming back to, you know, why Startup Week Lusaka was founded in the first place by Stephen and his team. You know, maybe that's one of the key elements. Maybe they've had a chance to talk in advance, but you know, this is not a problem that goes away just over the course of a week. So maybe that can be one of the things that ties into us moving forward. So what I would like to know is around some of how you feel and think as a participant. So I think that'll be really interesting from my perspective. So what are some of the emotions? What are some of the thoughts that you have as a participant, even sitting at the moment in this conversation, in this workshop? I'm curious to think or to understand what you think, what you feel at this moment in time. So I think that's really useful. So we've got this insight here into, let's have a look. Okay, perfect. Unsure about the future of my startup. So that's something that we've got by one of the participants who's saying, you know, actually, I'm a bit unsure about how this is moving forward. So at this point, we're asking the question is, you know, okay, well, how can I, this is a problem. So how can I make this person more confident and comfortable about the future of this? And, you know, maybe we need to ask more whys. So if that person wants to go into a little bit more depth in the chat and tell us a little bit about, you know, why are you unsure? You know, is it around the lack of funding streams? Is it, you know, confidence in your own ability around certain business elements? Maybe it's, you know, identifying the right market. Perhaps it's even the use of design thinking frameworks. Maybe it's even from a financial perspective. All of these things will help us as we start to ask more questions. And you can see that in the first interview, as we talk through this, you know, it can be a process, you know, trying to get people to share some of their things, you know, it takes time. It takes time to understand where people are from and where their backgrounds are from, where their mind frame is at, how they're thinking and feeling. So I'm going to take a quick screenshot of this and we'll keep that in mind as we move forward throughout this. So we've got 15 minutes left, and it's just good to keep that. So the uncertainty that's there, the lack of hardware, the lack of infrastructure, all of these things are coming true. I'm scared of people stealing my idea. Thanks for sharing that, whoever that was. That's really interesting. So yeah, absolutely. Look, it can be nerve-wracking, especially when you believe that you have an idea that's so important. So again, perhaps that's something that the Startup Week could start to look at next year is, you know, how do we create these safe spaces that allow people the confidence to be able to present these ideas and to go and find mentors and supports as you move forward with it. So really quickly, what I'm going to do is I'm going to clear all drawings, and now we're going to go into our solutions. So thank you for sharing those with us. At this point, what we're going to do is I'm going to come out of here. I'm just going to take a quick look into the chat. And I'm going to have a look at what's happening here. So from Tanzo, they're saying hardware, internet connectivity. We have there as well the new thing for people from an organizer perspective. So the buy-in was hard, getting time off from Tanzo as well. Then we had plenty of insight in there as well. Ready to move forward with my startup. So appreciate that. And we would love to hear more from others who are sharing that experience as well. So please feel free to type in the chat. We'd love to hear your thoughts. So that empathy map is the first stage of our overall process. We move back to what we were looking at here in our problem solution. The problem we can start to find through these empathy maps. So that empathy map allows us, that interview, allows us to say, well, who are the user? What do they want? What are some of the fears? So again, Tanzo, thank you for sharing that. That was really insightful from that perspective. And what do they need to do? So from there now, we're going to try and look at some solutions to some of these challenges that we faced. And in this case, we want all of your creative ideas. So we want that chat to fill up. We've got 20-something creative minds there. So we'd love to hear from you some of those challenges. So from this space, what we're going to do again is we're going to try and annotate, or you're going to jump in the chat, and we're going to help us to create some solutions to some of the challenges. So again, we had our outages. We also had the challenge around stakeholder engagement. We had a challenge as well around the engagement of participants, and you are the participants, so I guess that you are the best people to tell us how best to engage you. What actually is it that you want from these workshops? What is it you want from Startup Week moving forward? Please pop it in the chat, because this is all part of this process. It's hard work sometimes to go through it, and it can be, you know, when we talk about design thinking, it can sound very sexy, but we want to be able to actually get involved. And that's what it is. It's not just about theory, it's about putting it into practice. And walking through these processes and being willing to feel the pain of these processes a bit as well is so important, because that's what adds the value to the team in this case, but moving forward for you in your business and in your space. So yeah, so what we want to do is have a look at this. So for example, I think there was a few people who put in the chat, we had start stakeholder engagement much earlier. So my question around that would be, you know, what does stakeholder engagement look like to you? So maybe it's creating, I guess, data, creating some data insights. And I think, Stephen, I don't know if you're there at the moment, but if you want to jump on, I think you got some insights even into some of the social media post that you had out. Could you give us an insight into that, please, if you want to jump on the mic real quick, if you're there?
What did you say you want?
So you got some insights into the data, the analytics behind one of your videos there recently, one of the workshops. Can you give us an insight into what those statistics look like?
The one that I shared with you?
Yes, please.
Okay, just a moment. It was saying organic, you want the reach, about the reach, right?
Yes, that'll be brilliant.
Organic reach 1,295.
That was from yesterday.
Yes, paid is 0, and then reactions 18, comments 3, shares 5, 77 video plays, and 87 other clicks. Is
nice.
that okay?
That sounds brilliant. Thanks for sharing that with us. That's really useful. So again, you can see that that Stephen has taken out the elements of the data behind the scenes for this Startup Week. So for example, in one video, they got a reach yesterday within a couple of hours of 1,295. You know, that's something that they can now use moving forward to be able to create some ideas for how to be able to engage stakeholders. So when a stakeholder, when you're having a conversation with them, it's saying, okay, well, here are our numbers. You know, we had X amount of participants throughout the course of the week. We had this number of reach that's there. And that's something that we used in terms of Startup Week Dublin, to be able to say to our Dublin City Council, to our enterprise board, who then funded us moving forward, to say, this is what you get. This is where we're valuable. This is the value that's there as well. So you can see there, fixing in a gaming activity or a digital quiz to enhance participant engagement and kick out boredom. Fantastic. Yeah, absolutely. That can be really important within that. It's having that insight into it. We have promote this year's event going forward to help promote next year's event. So yeah, how do we collect that data? So if there's anyone in the chat at the moment who will be able to share some good platforms to collect data, maybe they know some businesses that do that, that are able to look into the media insights, please share that with the team. That would be something that would be really useful. Again, we have an insight there. It says, survey participants as they sign up on topics they would want to see. All really useful. So again, that survey might be something that goes out towards the end of the week that you might be able to do. Fixing a date to go. Yep, go ahead. Someone jump in.
We also, I think we can even give, we have the data of all the people who signed up to expressing interest in attending. We have even the percentages to say out of 300 something people who registered, such a percentage are female, such a percentage are male. I don't know if that is valuable at some point.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it is. I think knowing the ratio of women to men that are involved in any event, I think is crucial, because again, it allows you to grow and develop. Again, it's not about getting it perfect the first time round, but perhaps you say, well, actually, at the moment, it's 30% female, 70% men, and you might go, okay, well, we need to move on that next year. We need to get that 50-50, we need to get it even, and that's something that you might look into in terms of how the language that you use around how to promote the event. Perhaps it's around getting people on board who are able to be advocates within different spaces. But again, it's all a learning curve. For us, it was getting captains on board who were able to fill in our lack of knowledge and experience, because we had 3 men at the start, and we needed to put other people from different perspectives around us there. So Talita, Furkan, Kim, and all of those were able to give us insights into things that we didn't see for ourselves. So we've only got a few minutes left. Thank you so much for everyone who got involved in this part so far. It's actually been really insightful to see the insights there. We have used sign-up data for new targets. Brilliant. Involve many community members in planning and organizing. And you know what? That's a great point. So we have our participants here at the moment. Will you just pop in the chat? You can just write a message to the team to say, if you're interested in getting involved with planning and organizing Startup Week Lusaka next year, you know, that's something that we would love to see as well. So pop that in the chat, and then it allows the team to be able to reach out to you to be able to let us know what we can do to get you involved within that. So I'm going to clear off what we have here. Thank you so much for that. We're going to move on really quickly, which will give you an insight into what happens next. From here, we're not going to ask because we're tight on time. At this point then, it gives the team, we're going to send this to the team. They're going to be able to validate then. They'll follow up with you with emails and with some polls and maybe a survey to be able to now use what you've shared with us to identify questions that need to be added to that survey. We'll be able to then see if, you know, these problems that you have, are they urgent? Can we sort them out? Can we fix them for next year? You know, how many people have the problems that you've shared as individuals? I think that's important. And then, you know, try and identify what are some of the barriers. Maybe they're social, maybe they're technical, maybe they're related to hardware, maybe they're economical. So all of these things are elements that we need to be able to try and address. And it's what will allow the team to start to go to the next stages of the design thinking process that we mentioned before. We've gone from empathy, trying to understand you in a very small way. We've then moved to creating some ideas and after the definition of the problem, which is around engagement. And now we're going to... Sorry, I have someone there jumping on. Hope, is that you? Do you want to hop on the mic? I'm not too sure. Maybe I missed someone. If that's, I think that might be Hope. Hope, if you want to jump on, you're more than welcome to jump on and have a conversation there. Maybe you turned on the mic by mistake, and if you did, that's no problem at all. So from my side, at that point, once you've got your problem and you've got your solution, at this point, you're asking, what does that solution do? So for example, if you're looking at interactive quizzes, if you're looking at surveys, if you're looking at creating data, which then allows you to go from there, within business, you might ask, does this add unique value? And at this point, then we're starting to create this unique value for Startup Week Lusaka. And I think once we have that, once the team have that, this is what will make you powerful moving forward. It'll allow you to be able to have the impact that you want to create. And it just gives you an insight. And as we mentioned, your unfair advantage as a team is basically who you are. It's the experience, the brains. As we heard just before this talk, we heard about people who have lived experiences that are unique to others, who might be in more comfortable settings. All of that makes you unique. It gives you that unfair advantage over anyone else who would try and do what you do. And again, it's happening locally, and I think that's so powerful for it. But there's some questions to ask around what are the costs, what are the barriers that you have moving forward. And all of this comes together in this problem solution canvas, which is just one of many, many frameworks that you can use from a design thinking perspective. And it allows you then to put it all together. And maybe we can do that for you. We might be able to put this all together for you and share this with you later on in the year when we've got this all done, and we will be able to show you that you've been part of something that has impacted not only on Startup Week Lusaka, but on the community moving forward. So thank you very much for having me. If you've got any questions, you can of course connect with me. I'd be more than happy to do that. And I appreciate you testing out the new technology, getting involved online with us here, because I know it's difficult, especially using phones and things like that. So we appreciate it, and we would love to hear from you moving forward after this. And I just want to say congratulations to the Startup Week Lusaka team. You've done a great job, and best of luck on wrapping up on your final day.